Hey, everyone. What is going on? Lauren Sisler here with AL.com, and it is week 1 of the college football season. Who is fired up? I'm fired up. I know who else is fired up. Tom Green. He joins us now to chat a little Auburn football. You have a big smile on your face this morning because it is game week. Let's go. Are you ready?
Let's do this. Finally.
Let's bring it. It's been talking season. Now we can finally talk about actual games, which is super exciting. You've been boots on the ground there at Auburn, covering this new era, the new Brian Harsin era. A lot of, question marks obviously going to the season. How is this new team going to look? And we'll kind of dig into that here in our week 1 segment of SEC Insider. Auburn taking on Akron on the Plains. That game, 6:00 Saturday night on ESPN+. Now, Auburn opens as a 5-touchdown favorite. And first and foremost, I just want to start on a positive note. I just want to get your thoughts on your excitement level of getting back into the stadium and what will be hopefully maybe a more normal season. And obviously, kind of the traditions and everything that goes along with college football will be back intact this year. So just your overall thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be nice to see, the big crowds. I know a lot of people still have their concerns with the Delta variant going around, but I mean, the last time we saw that stadium fully packed was the 2019 Iron Bowl. Certainly that's, quite a lasting memory to have for your last time in a full stadium there. But man, like just thinking back, that's been almost 2 years. Just a few months shy of 2 years. It's crazy to really think about it. But, I'm excited to see that place back, full capacity. I know they said they still have some tickets available. So we'll see if they can get that sellout. But, just that and, having on-campus tailgating back, seeing people around campus, seeing, the street line for Tiger Walk, I think it's going to be, kind of a sight to behold and kind of just – I think it's for a lot of people, it's going to feel like a weight has been lifted off their shoulders after, the last almost, year and a half or so.
Yeah, no doubt. And I kind of go back to one thing last season that Gene Chizik, he did an op-ed for us at AL.com and, just kind of talked about football season and how it impacts not only the lives of obviously the programs, the coaches, the athletes, the guys that go out there and compete. And when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, you train 365 days a year for really just a handful of games that you can, almost count on 2 hands. And it's, not only looking at that, but the perspective from the fans and, being able to kind of come together, the unity, you might not be cheering for the same team, but you come together on one unified front to come watch a game and be a part of that. And the game day traditions. And I know a lot of people missed that last year and certainly this year excited to get back to it. And hopefully, with safety first and health in mind, I know everyone is excited to kind of get the college football feels back. And I certainly am. And it definitely feels like game week. So as you can tell at 9:30 in the morning, I'm pretty fired up. So with that being said, Tom, greatest strength of this Auburn team, in your opinion, and I think I know where you're going with this, but I'll let you take it away.
I mean, it's got to be on the defensive side of the ball. There's some questions about the defensive line just because of some of what they're replacing. They got a new position they're integrating there. But behind that linebacker core, you're bringing back Owen Pappoe and Zakoby McClain, the team's 2 leading tacklers last year. Owen Pappoe is one of 2 permanent captains along with Chandler Wooten. Another linebacker who's back in the fold after opting out last season has really, garnered the respect of his teammates for, everything he did over the last year and a half, through the pandemic, leading the team on and off the field and just, picking up where he left off before he opted out. And then Zakoby McClain, I mentioned, he led the country in tackles last year and, he got snubbed from some, postseason recognitions and he's kind of carried that as a chip on his shoulder. So I think this linebacker core, especially in Derek Mason's system, which, has been described multiple times as very linebacker friendly. I think we're going to see them, kind of funnel a lot of things to those linebackers, let those guys make plays in space, let them, get in there in the run game. Definitely the linebackers are going to be the strength of this team. And I think that secondary too. I mean, you look at what they bring back in Smoke Monday, Roger McCreary, Nehemiah Pritchett, Jalen Simpson, those guys, and then just what they added on the transfer market. Guys like by Darius Knight and Donovan Kaufman, who look like they're going to be starters at safety and nickel. Ro Torrens, who was the junior college player of the year, is going to be a factor in there at corner. I just think the quality of depth that they have in the secondary is going to give them a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom to do things. And, with the way Derek Mason, his scheme kind of draws it up as an off man, so they're not playing as much press. I think we're going to see them kind of take advantage of their athleticism there in the secondary.
Sorry, I had to mute my line there just for a hot minute. Mondays are the day where we've got the lawn care going on outside. So, I definitely am anxious to see what this defense brings to the table under Derek Mason, and really just so many moving parts. And I think that's kind of what makes this exciting, while we're kind of honing in on the greatest strength of this Auburn team, sort of the excitement of what this team is going to look like when they go out on this field. Again, they open as a 5-touchdown favorite. So how much we will actually learn about this team really comes into question. And so that's kind of where I go with my next question to you, Tom, is what are some questions that you hope are answered after week 1? We may not get all those questions that we've had and we've talked about throughout fall camp, spring football into fall camp under Coach Harsin. We might not answer all those questions in week 1 based on the opponent that they're playing, but what is it you hope is answered in week 1?
Yeah, again, certainly I don't think we're going to get, a complete picture for a lot of these questions. But, I think, first off, we want to see whether Bo Nix, looks more comfortable in that offense. We've heard he's had a really good offseason. He's taken well to the coaching. He's been vulnerable to it and more accepting of it, as Mike Bobo said. We want to see him take that next step, how he looks running a pro-style offense, how comfortable he is when they do go under center, and just whether, he can be that guy in year 3. I don't think he's going to have any problems against Akron, certainly. They're expected to be one of the worst teams in FBS this season. But, you want to see some of that growth from him, especially early in the season, heading into that Penn State game, see him just settle in, get comfortable. Because really, I think it's going to be interesting to see, how long of a leash does he actually have this season with, TJ Finley kind of breathing down his neck. Some other things I'm curious to see, just how much will they use those tight ends? We've talked about it before. That's been a position that's been very underutilized in this offense in recent years, but we've seen it throughout the spring and throughout fall camp. Those guys are more involved in the passing game. We're seeing some 2 tight end sets. They're going to do some different things there, and they've got the depth there that could actually be a weapon in this offense finally. Again, just staying on the offensive side of the ball, who's going to step up at receiver? They lost a lot. They lost Seth Williams, they lost Anthony Schwartz, they lost Eli Stove. And, there's 2 guys that seem like they've really, risen to the top of that group right now, and it's Demetrius Robinson, the Georgia grad transfer, and Javarius Johnson, who was, seemingly Bo Nix's favorite target throughout the spring and has been pretty much a fixture in that first team. But who's going to be that other guy to step up, and how are they going to look and, just take advantage of that? And then again, we mentioned the defense. That defensive line's got some question marks, especially after Tyrone Truesdale's departure at the start of the preseason. Who's going to be that defensive tackle right there in the middle? I think you certainly have options. Tony Fair is a guy that, I think when Auburn goes with 3 down linemen, he's going to be that nose tackle to kind of, plug those gaps. But, Colby Wooden's coming off a really strong season. We've heard great things about Marcus Harris, the Kansas transfer from Montgomery. So I think just seeing how that defensive line rotation shakes out and, how they kind of gel early on in the season will, say a lot about setting the tone for this defense.
Yeah, I think setting the tone is key. Chemistry, development. How is this team developed, especially through fall camp? Joseph Ballard there writes in, wide receivers, super talented, just young and inexperienced. And I think that's a lot of what we're kind of up against. Now, obviously with Bo Nix, not young, not inexperienced, but I will be super anxious to see how he has been developed by Coach Harsin. I know that you guys have had an opportunity to kind of hop into a couple of practice sessions under Coach Harsin. Is there anything, because again, we don't get a huge glimpse into what's going on behind closed doors, right? We get sort of that stretching period, just a little bit here and there, a couple nuggets to chew on. Is there anything substantial that you've noticed in practice that kind of stands out to you, especially on the offensive side of the football, about how they're managing things, moving things, working through drills?
Well, I think one of the things that just really stands out, I mean, and we had the full open practice on Saturday, so
Okay.
it wasn't going to be super revealing 1 week before the game, but we did get a feel of the depth chart and just how these guys are looking right now. And I think one thing that's very noticeable in these practices, both the one Saturday and the other opportunities that we've gotten to see them in small periods, is just how there's constant movement and they're keeping these guys, on their toes, moving from station to station, going from drill to drill. Sometimes they've got them running through 4 different circuits in a period. So I think that's certainly one of those things. And, I've been impressed with what I've seen from Bo Nix and TJ Finley in these open practices. I mean, you can tell Bo's mechanics just look a little bit crisper. He looks pretty confident running that offense. And TJ Finley, I mean, 6'7", the guy's towering over everybody. And he's got a cannon for an arm. So just kind of seeing those guys go shot for shot against each other in practice has been fun. I think, that kind of added pressure has been good for both of them, certainly for Bo Nix, because, he knows he has to look over his shoulder because he's got somebody right there this year.
Yeah. And someone that's quite tall, right? Definitely cannot miss him on the field. That's for sure. All right. Last one before I let you go. Obviously, as we mentioned, Auburn opening as a 5-touchdown favorite against Akron on Saturday. What would be considered a good win for Coach Harsin? We know one thing about Coach Harsin. He has been a consistent football coach coming from Boise State, consistently in the win column. Obviously, the expectation is there for the season opener. But what would be considered in your mind a good win when you can walk away and say, okay, I feel pretty good about this?
So I wouldn't focus so much on that, 37-point spread. That's a lot for any team to cover, regardless of the disparity between the two teams. But really, if I'm Auburn, I want to see just good execution and good operation on both sides of the ball. This is the first time these guys are going against live competition. I think there's going to be, a little bit of rust to shake off, certainly, as there typically is in openers like this. But, you want to feel good about, just the way you're executing the offense. You want to take care of the ball. You want to be clean. You don't want to commit, a lot of penalties and things like that can kind of hinder your progress or stall out drives, things like that. But I would expect Auburn to win this one very handily. But you'd feel good if just everything went smoothly and there weren't any hiccups, I think.
Yeah, I think smooth, maybe some explosive plays, obviously to generate some excitement. And as you mentioned, just talking about Bo Nix specifically and how he manages the game, obviously his mechanics have improved. I imagine in your opinion, we will probably end up seeing both quarterbacks in this game. Do you think?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, just reading between the lines from listening to Brian Harsin these last couple of weeks, he wants to settle on one quarterback, and all signs point to Bo Nix being that guy. But TJ Finley has been really impressive since he got here. Obviously, he didn't have the spring to go through the offense like Bo Nix did, but he's been really impressive in the way he's progressed this year. He's been right there with Bo Nix in the preseason. And, Harsin hasn't been afraid to use a second quarterback before. We saw that a few years ago at Boise State, where, he had a guy, he'll find a role for you if he thinks that you're going to help that team win. And I think TJ Finley certainly is one of those guys that, maybe they'll have certain packages for him. He'll probably be quarterback too, certainly. But, having certain packages for him to come in and get some work, get a little bit more comfort, because you never know. He's one play away from being the guy at all times. And as Brian Harsin said, it's always one guy at quarterback until it's not.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And certainly, I think those guys deep in competition and certainly, putting that pressure on can definitely enhance things and hopefully, get those guys kind of on the right track. And of course, with Bo Nix having been there, done that, and having that experience, I think this can only benefit him to kind of have that pressure behind him. Certainly, as you mentioned earlier. Tom, we appreciate it. I know you'll be at the game. I know you'll be soaking in all there is to soak in on a Saturday Saturday evening on the plains. You've grown so accustomed to being there and spending time there. So back in your home away from home. And we look forward to obviously your coverage there. So follow Tom Green on Twitter, on social media. You can find all his work there as well as on AL.com. He'll be tracking the game, obviously everything leading up to it. Week 1, super excited. Again, Akron at Auburn on ESPN Plus, 6 p.m. Saturday. Thank you. And we'll check in with you guys soon.